commentary or really any explanation as to why these characters were hated outside of the description saying that the numbers aren't 100% accurate. All of the numbers were based off of Google searches between 2003 and 2019, which I don't really know how you check the Google searches for hatred towards a character. Like, are people just out there Googling Sasuke, H-A-T-E in all capital letters? Like, are those the Google lists that we're compiling? Genuinely, I don't know. However, the video did get me thinking. See, because here's the thing, Naruto is a massive universe with tons of characters. And as every individual watching Naruto has different feelings on certain characters, I would assume that every individual who watches Naruto would have a different top 10 list of hated characters. Like, while I may dislike Sasuke as a character, you may love him, and therefore he wouldn't make your top 10. And while I might love Danzo as a character, you may hate him, and therefore he would make your top 10. And so on and so forth. And this is the beauty of a wide and deep universe filled with so many characters with different backstories and different motivations and different actions, is that I can hate a character that you love, and you can hate a character that I love, but we can still come together in our enjoyment of the universe. Because it's not like I hate all of the main characters, I just hate one. And it's not like I love all the bad guys, I only love a couple. But you do come here for me, kind of, I guess. So today, I want to go through these top 10 hated characters and give my honest reaction to whether or not I feel as though these characters belong on this top 10 list. And since apparently this list was compiled from Google searches, this top 10 Naruto hated characters list should probably mirror a list somewhat close to yours. The reason that I'm saying all this is because this list is not my top 10 Naruto characters I hate the most list. Maybe if this video does well, I'll end up making my own list, but for today, I'd like to try and react to what is your list in the most accurate way possible. Because if we're assuming these numbers are even remotely correct, this is probably pretty close to what your list looks like. So this is about as close as I can get to ranking a list that you've sent me without every single one of you sending me a list. Got it? Good. Let's get into it. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. If you see my finger at any point and you're worried about me, don't worry, I just cut the tip of my finger off with a mandolin. It's healed. Well, I guess healed is not the right word. It's healing. But if you want to help me heal, guys, go ahead and follow me on my other page, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime. And if you really want to help me in my healing process, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you really want to help me heal, guys, go ahead and pop on over to my brand new merch shop and pick up some of my incredible merch. Whether it be the Donzo or the Itachi political tees or Otaku's Anonymous sticker packs, it's all pretty great. So, hated characters. Genuinely, they can be the reason that people either drop the show or continue watching it. And that's the beauty of hatred towards a fictional character. Either you check in every single week waiting to see the episode when the character is destroyed, or it's the reason you stop checking in every week because you just can't handle the character anymore. And that's the wildest thing, because while characters like Rudius Greyrat, Mineta, or Meliodas could possibly make you drop in anime, characters like Danzo or Yahaba can make you check in every week. But there's a stark difference between those two examples, because even though those 5 characters I listed could all end up on top 10 most hated anime characters lists, they're on those lists for different reasons. See, to me, genuinely, there's nothing more atrocious in an anime than a protagonist I'm supposed to like that I hate. Because in an ideal circumstance, a top 10 hated characters from a certain anime list should just be villains, or those with villainous tendencies. However, not all villains are hated. Characters like Aizen and Madara would never end up on a top 10 hated list, because they're unique, woven into the story, incredibly powerful, they have great character designs, they have character development arcs. Everything about these kinds of villains we gravitate towards, we hold on to, we love. And that's what's so interesting about directing hate at fictional characters. Because even though sometimes we're watching a character do absolutely horrific things, we can't help but like the character. A good example of this would be Joe from You, a character that is objectively detestable. However, the story and the way the character is built makes us sympathize and even relate, which makes our brain do this moral dance of, well, I like this person, but they're a bad person. And that is good writing. And that to me is what makes a list like this so interesting. Because while a lot of characters ended up on this list because they were written the right way, a good amount of characters ended up on this list because they were written the wrong way. And coming in last place, or 10th, is Kabuto, who I believe toes the line between written poorly and written well. See, for a long time, Kabuto was one of my least favorite characters. It was Sasuke, Obito, and then Kabuto. And that's because Kabuto is kind of an infuriating character. He, like Orochimaru, exists as a villainous character in Naruto for almost the entirety of its run. All the way from the Chunin exams to the climax of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, he is there, being annoying. And the real reason that Kabuto is so annoying is because he has no feelings of his own. When we're first introduced to Kabuto, he seems like a friendly guy who just can't pass the Chunin exams. But then it's revealed that he's Orochimaru's shill, who not only takes great pleasure out of torturing a woman in Tsunade who suffers massively from PTSD, but also takes great pleasure in torturing a 12-year-old genin who he slightly befriended like a week prior. And in that moment, we feel so betrayed. Kabuto, a character who we thought was an ally, is actually an ally of the most evil man in OG Naruto, Orochimaru. And not only that, he's powerful. Like in OG Naruto, Kabuto was talking an incredible amount of smack. Yes, he defeats Tsunade, which isn't tough back then because, like I said, she was massively suffering from PTSD. But he also smacks around Naruto and says that he wishes he could stick around to fight Jiraiya because he wants to fight one of the legendary Sannin after he just got finished battling against Tsunade, but whatever. And he never really goes away. But the problem that a lot of people have with Kabuto is not that he's a bad guy that sticks around for a long time, it's that he never finds an identity. See, because Kabuto is revealed to be a spy for the Akatsuki, as he's been relaying information about Orochimaru back to the Akatsuki, but then we find out he was actually a double agent for Orochimaru, and he's actually still with Orochimaru. But the worst part about Kabuto being with Orochimaru is that Orochimaru's squad is so unique. From Kimimaru to the rest of the Sound Village 5 to Sasuke to basically everybody that Orochimaru interacts with, be they Karin, Suigetsu, or Jugo, are all so unique with their own Kekkei Genkai. And yet Kabuto, who's hailed to be Orochimaru's strongest assistant, is kind of just a PA, a physician's assistant. He helps in all things medical ninjutsu. He's always standing next to Orochimaru, and that's kind of it. He's just an annoying voice that tags along with Orochimaru everywhere he goes. And this only gets worse after Orochimaru's death, as Kabuto takes a piece of Orochimaru's skin and grafts it onto his body. He then undergoes the least original power-up in all of Naruto, getting all of Orochimaru's great white snake abilities, also becoming a snake sage, calling himself a dragon sage, getting all the Kekkei Genkai of the Sound Village 5, Jugo's ability to pull in nature energy. Basically everything Orochimaru ever built, Kabuto grafted onto his body. And thus Kabuto just became an amorphous blob of some other man's accomplishments. And that's just boring. Not to mention he's solely responsible for making Madara a new body, bringing Madara back in the first place, as well as bringing back all of the other Edo Tensei soldiers to fight against the Great Shinobi World War. And what's worse than all of this is that all he has to do to atone for this grave injustice that killed 20,000 people is stay in Izanami for like 6 hours. Sure, Izanami forces him to have this great change in his life where he realizes that he can't change it the way that the world works, but is that enough? Not to mention that after the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, he's just forgiven and gets to run an orphanage. And genuinely, Kabuto was in my top 3 most hated characters for a long time because of all these points. However, that was before I did a you-know-nothing about him, where I realized that the reason that Kabuto globs onto every person that he's ever known is because every person he's ever known has been taken away from him. Whether it was his parents or Nana Yakushi, the woman who ran the orphanage that he grew up in, everybody he ever loved was yanked away from him. And thus anybody who gave him even the slightest amount of attention, he globbed onto, making their needs, their wants, their personality his own. And therefore, while Kabuto is an incredibly aggravating character, there's kind of a reason behind that, and he's written that way on purpose. And actually, the true beauty of Kabuto's character is that he goes back to the orphanage, as the orphanage is the only time that Kabuto ever got to be a human, not dictated by other humans' desires, because it was at that very orphanage that Danzo plucked him out to be a member of the Root. So Kabuto, by going back to the orphanage and raising other orphans, is living by his rules for the first time in his life. And I think that's kind of beautiful. Do I think he deserved more punishment, and do I still not love him as a character? Absolutely yes. But is he still in my top 3 most hated characters? No, but he's definitely in my top 10. But enough about children who got groomed by evil men to do terrible things in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Up next, we have exactly that, because coming in at number 9, we have Obito, another character who existed within the top 3 of my least favorite characters in all of Naruto. And here's a little peek behind the curtain. he's still there. Here's the thing. Is Obito technically a largely misunderstood character? Yes. A lot of people believe that Obito started the 4th Great Shinobi World War because Kakashi killed Rin, which is not true, but is also kind of true. See, Obito himself states that if Kakashi believes that he's starting the 4th Great Shinobi World War over the death of Rin, that he's insane. Which for a lot of people disproves that Obito started the 4th Great Shinobi World War over Rin. But if you ignore the fact that Rin's death was a large factor in Obito falling out of love with the ninja system and the way that the world works, you'd be lying to yourself. People can do things for multiple reasons, and therefore I believe a lot of the hatred towards Obito is people believing that Obito started the 4th Great Shinobi World War only over Rin, when in actuality Obito saw a flawed system and wanted to fix it. So if I can acknowledge the fact that Obito isn't the simp that a lot of people paint him to be, why is he in my top 3 least favorite characters? I kind of hate the way he's written. Genuinely, I think he's kind of boring. In what meaningful capacity is Obito different from Nagato? Oh wait, both children blessed with dojutsu, scarred by the warring system of ninjas at a young age, who the loss of a loved one sent them over the edge only to make them realize that in order to change the world, they had to break the system that made their loved one be lost in the first place. Both technically leaders of the Akatsuki, both actively working their way towards the Eye of the Moon plan, and while Nagato was more focused on spreading pain across the entire world so everybody could be connected through the great force that was pain, Obito just kind of wanted the Eye of the Moon plan. And Nagato having an outside motivation not tied into the Eye of the Moon plan is why you won't find him on this list, as Nagato actually goes through like a lot more than Obito does. Watching his country get ravaged, the loss of his parents in a needless murder, the loss of Yahiko at its own hands because Danzo was intimidated by the possible powers of a peaceful Akatsuki unifying with a hidden reign. And while neither Obito or Nagato's ideology was correct, Nagato's was a bit more compelling. My biggest beef with both Nagato and Obito's character is the fact that they committed their entire lives to ideologies, killed hundreds, if not thousands of people in the name of said ideology, and then after a 3 or so minute conversation with Naruto, we're like, oh, never mind. Hate that. Like, H-A-T-E. Hate that. Listen, I get it. Talk no Jutsu is an incredibly powerful jutsu, and Naruto is supposed to be this motivating Jesus-like ninja character. But when you've committed the level of atrocities that Nagato or Obito have committed in the name of their philosophies, and then you give up that philosophy in these that like H-A-T-E. Hate that. Listen, I get it. Talk no Jutsu is an incredibly powerful jutsu, and Naruto is supposed to be this motivating Jesus-like ninja character. But when you've committed the level of atrocities that Nagato or Obito have committed in the name of their philosophies, and then you give up that philosophy in 3 minutes, it makes it seem like you were never that dedicated to the philosophy that you massacred thousands of people to pull off. But at least Nagato, when he decided his give up that philosophy in 3 minutes, it makes it seem like you were never that dedicated to the philosophy that you massacred thousands of people to pull off. But at least Nagato, when he decided his philosophy wasn't correct after talking to Naruto, had the audacity to bring everybody he killed back to life. Well, what did Obito do? Well, he joined the good guys for 30 episodes and died to Kaguya. Sure, he saved Kakashi for the second time, which is kind of a cool little full circle character arc moment. And sure, he gave his eyes to Kakashi in kind of a brotherly love kind of moment. But when it comes down to it, Obito isn't as compelling as Madara or Nagato and is about as annoying as Kabuto. Not to mention, from pretty much the moment that Madara shows up in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Obito no longer matters as an antagonist. Like, yeah, he gets his Jubito form, but then Jubito just gets defeated by Majestic Attire Susanoo. But enough of the villains, let's get to the good guys who ended up on this list, because coming in at number 8, mentioned from pretty much the moment that Madara shows up in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Obito no longer matters as an antagonist. Like, yeah, he gets his Jubito form, but then Jubito just gets defeated by Majestic Attire Susanoo. But enough of the villains, let's get to the good guys who ended up on this list, because coming in at number 8, we have A. I find this interesting, but I also understand it and kind of agree. See, I've made it incredibly clear. I love the Hidden Cloud. I believe that the Cloud have equal to or greater fighting force in Konoha for the majority of Naruto's history. And I've made it a hobby to talk about the Hidden Cloud and the Raikage as often as possible, because genuinely, I find them incredibly interesting. I feel as though a Naruto story based out of the Hidden Cloud would be really cool. But at the same time, I understand disliking A, the 4th Raikage. Because here's the thing, when A is first introduced, he's kind of a bad guy. Not only do we see A and Killer B battle against Minato in the 3rd Great Shinobi World War, but also in the 5 Kage Summit prior to the 4th Great Shinobi World War, when Sasuke pulls up and tries to fight all of the Kage at once, A is kind of the worst Kage there. He smashes his table, he yells at all the other Kage, he makes it very clear he's not going to participate, and when it comes to Sasuke having meaningful battles against all of the Kage when he pulls up on the 5 Kage Summit, his most meaningful battle is against A. And here's the thing, in that moment, we're kind of supposed to be rooting for Sasuke, because A has been depicted as this somewhat evil, overbearing Raikage figure who's been plaguing Konoha for decades, as in that moment he was probably the most powerful Kage at the table. And this is further depicted when he arm wrestles against Tsunade and keeps up with the KCM1 Naruto, who's trying to convince him that he shouldn't go after Sasuke. See, A is depicted as this incredibly powerful authoritarian figure from a scary, powerful village. And considering the fact that we're told the story of Naruto through the perspective of Konoha, this is kind of unsettling. And the thing is, A never really changes. Well, obviously the Shinobi Alliance comes together and A is elected to be the leader of it, as he is the most powerful Kage out of all of them. A still feels like the most possible threat to Konoha outside of the bad guys. And considering the history between Konoha and the Hidden Cloud, with people like Kinkaku and Ginkaku killing Tobirama, our feelings of unease around an incredibly powerful Raikage are justified. And what's wilder than that is that it doesn't end after the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Well, obviously A and the Hidden Cloud are allies during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. In Naruto the Last, it's revealed that the Hidden Cloud has been building a chakra cannon capable of destroying the entire moon in a time period when all of the villages are supposed to be demilitarizing. So for as long as we've known A, he's always felt like a threat to Konoha's security. And as he feels like a threat to Konoha's security, we dislike him as a character. Now, I personally like A as a character a lot. He's an old school ninja, distrusting of other villages because he's lived through wars against them. And while he comes together to join the Shinobi Alliance, he makes sure that the Hidden Cloud never loses a step to other villages like Konoha, who technically, just like the Hidden Cloud, also are not demilitarizing during the demilitarization era, as Konoha are making things like shinobi wear and shinobi gauntlets, things that, while they may not technically be made to increase the might of Konoha's military, do exactly that. So A definitely wouldn't make it onto my list. But you know who would make it onto my list? The number 7 entry, White Zetsu. How can something made from the cells of a man so great turn out so evil? I mean, hating White Zetsu just kind of makes sense. It's like hating the Cybermen, or really any goon. The White Zetsu were just the fighting force of the bad guy. Makes sense. It's like hating the Cybermen, or really any goon. The White Zetsu were just the fighting force of the bad guys during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Of course, they were all stated to be high Jonin level fighters, which obviously it didn't seem as though they were, because people like 1010 were wiping out hundreds of them. They were just bad guy copy and paste characters with no character development, which makes sense when you consider the fact that they were either constructed from Hashirama's cells or from the original round of Infinite Tsukiyomi. Mix of old people. Not that interesting, very easily hateable. Moving on. Because coming in at number 6, we do have a pretty interesting entry, because coming in at number 6, we have Karin, also known as Karin Uzumaki, also known as the woman obsessed with Sasuke. At least one of the women obsessed with Sasuke. Now, Karin is our first example on this list of is on this list because of bad writing. The previous 4 entries, I can see with good writing why those 4 people would be on this list. 2 of them are bad guys. One of them leads an incredibly powerful village that opposes the views of our main village. Another one is just the army that we had to fight in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. But Karin is none of those things. Well, Karin is technically a bad guy in Naruto. She never really felt that way, and the reason that she never really felt that way is because the story didn't take her seriously enough to actually give her any kind of development that would make us feel intimidated by her. In actuality, Karin is a victim of circumstance, a victim of Orochimaru, a victim of Sasuke, just a victim, which is annoying to a lot of viewers because Karin is one of the only Uzumakis left on Earth, and we've seen beyond a shadow of a doubt that she holds an insane amount of power. So her being written as somebody who's unable to do anything by herself is infuriating. See, Karin was born in the Hidden Grass Village, separated from the Hidden Whirlpool Village, so she wasn't affected by the Uzumaki massacre. However, she was soon taken from the Hidden Grass Village by Orochimaru, who wanted her for her Uzumaki life force. Now, could Orochimaru teach her a bunch of cool Uzumaki abilities and have her go be a badass fighter? Absolutely he could have. As I've already said, Karin is genuinely one of the more powerful people in Naruto. Between her mind's eye of the Kagura that allows her to open a third eye within her brain that allows her to see kilometers away, and not only just see kilometers away from herself, but also see through buildings and see if people are lying and read their chakra signatures from dozens of kilometers away. It's the best version of a Byakugan. On top of this, Karin is also a full-blooded Uzumaki, which means she has Uzumaki life force, which is so powerful that upon Tsunade biting Karin, it was able to refill the entirety of her Byakuya, which, mind you, took people like Sakura 3 years to fill. However, instead of getting a possibly incredibly powerful young Uzumaki female who's gonna revive the clan, what do we get? Another whiny Sasuke-obsessed love interest that's never gonna pan out into anything of any meaning whatsoever, who serves one purpose and one purpose alone. Whenever Sasuke gets hurt, let him bite you. For 99.9% of the time that Karin is on screen, she might as well be a medkit with a mouth. Karin gets one And I mean one cool moment in the entirety of Naruto, and that is when she finally unlocks her adamantite chains while battling against a wooden construct that Obito created. And that lasts about 11 seconds. For the entire rest of the time that Karin is on screen, all that she's doing is lusting after Sasuke, even after he stabs her for being taken hostage. She's wasted potential, she's whiny, she's used, she's basically everything that Masashi Kishimoto ties into every single one of his female characters. And then he ties those characters to one of my least favorite characters in Naruto, who also happens to be our number 5 spot, Sasuke. See, I've done entire videos breaking down why I dislike Sasuke, so I'm not going to go on a 20-minute diatribe right now. I've also recently done a half-hour video on everything I like about Sasuke. So let me give you the highlights on both ends of how I feel about Sasuke. I believe Sasuke in part 1 of Naruto is a legitimately good and compelling character. A character driven to try and get revenge for his clan that was killed by his older brother, and therefore he struggles to find meaning in anything else outside of getting revenge. And therefore when he begins to make friends with Naruto and care about him, possibly more than he cares about getting revenge on Itachi, it scares Sasuke. Because now, not only is he getting distracted from the thing that's supposed to be his greatest motivation in life, but also somebody he believed was lower than him is catching up to him in strength, which is a problem considering the fact that Itachi's strength is said to be second to none. So if somebody who I believed was a mess up from day one can catch my strength, there's no way I'll be able to catch Itachi's. Good motivation, genuinely fun character, great battles. Edgy, annoying, that plays a good foil to Naruto. But then Sasuke decided to no longer do the thing about him I liked, playing a good foil to Naruto. Because while technically Sasuke does pop up every once in a while in Shippuden to be like, hey, I'm not like you, Naruto, by far and away, the majority of Shippuden happens with Naruto and Sasuke very far from each other. And while Sasuke does still have some incredible fights, like his battle against Deidara and his battle against Itachi, Naruto and Sasuke's character development arcs happen completely separate of each other, which I guess is somewhat the intended point, because obviously Naruto is supposed to be building a community of people around him while Sasuke is getting more and more isolated. But what's worse than that is that Sasuke is constantly switching between ideologies. On one hand, he wants to kill Itachi, but when he kills Itachi, he realizes he wants to destroy Konoha, the exact opposite of what Itachi wanted him to do. And then after a certain amount of time, he realizes, never mind, I'm gonna help Konoha in the battle against Madara, and then he's like, oh, never mind, I'm gonna kill Naruto so I can become Hokage with no friends. He's edgy, he's annoying, he's terrible to Karin and Sakura, until very recently in the Boruto manga, he was a very bad father, and the majority of his power and wins were given to him in both Naruto and Shippuden. While in Boruto, he has yet to accomplish basically anything without Naruto. But since we're talking about Team 7, let's stick with Team 7, because coming in at number 4 is Sakura, who for the majority of Naruto and Naruto Shippuden was the most hated character. However, fortunately for me and her, other characters were introduced that people hitting him, making fun of him for being an orphan to another